Is there a war going on between the medical examiner's office and the LAPD? TMZ seems to think so, and now we know a grand jury is impaneled in the David and Celeste case. So, are arrests coming? Let's get started. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. A Los Angeles grand jury has been impaneled and indictments are coming. They are hearing evidence now related to what happened to Celeste, who was discovered inside the trunk of D4vd, also known as David Anthony Burke's Tesla, his 2023 black Tesla, earlier this year. This is according to two law enforcement sources told the Times. We have two law enforcement officers, and we also have other sources. So the other sources on this, we're going to talk about in just a second. But the LA County Grand Jury has been impaneled to hear the case and to return indictments in the D4vd case. Now, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has begun presenting. So he obviously signed off on whatever he has and decided to take it to a grand jury rather than a preliminary hearing, which would have been public. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has begun presenting evidence to what's known as an investigative grand jury, according to one of the sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity to the LA Times because they were not authorized to discuss the case with the media. But here we are. We have lots of leaking going on. One of the sources said that the grand jury had been in session for several days in mid-November. So this has been going on for a couple of weeks. So this explains why no arrests have been made. But it's not clear whether the prosecution have finished presenting their evidence to the grand jury or if it's still continuing. We know this is a very complicated case, so it's very likely that this might take more than a couple of weeks. This may take 3 weeks to get all of the information in front of a grand jury. Now, prosecutors are able to convene an investigative grand jury. They are able to subpoena witnesses and they're able to compel other evidence, including videos. Now, at a grand jury, the defense doesn't get to present their case, but the prosecution is responsible for presenting any exculpatory evidence that might prove that David is innocent. Now, David is innocent until proven guilty, and so I just want to put that out there. So such investigative panels can recommend charges. They cannot themselves return an indictment, but they can recommend charges to the district attorney, who will then return indictments. So all of the confusion between the LAPD and TMZ, I think that it's good that we have multiple sources on this particular breaking news. So not only does LA Magazine have two sources that are confirming this inside the police, but they also found a court petition that was provided to them on Monday containing a grand jury number, a GJ number, referencing the existence of a grand jury. So I feel very comfortable bringing you this information in light of the fact that we have not only two sources inside police, but also this grand jury number. And so in that document, the LAPD detective Joshua Byers of the Robbery Homicide Division successfully persuaded a judge to stop the LA County Medical Examiner from divulging the ME results and other details related to what happened to Celeste that would otherwise be public. So now we know why they did this, and it looks like the reason that the detective Joshua Byers did not want this information to be public is because he knew there was a grand jury seated hearing this evidence. So of course he wouldn't want to have the grand jury tainted. And now we understand why the judge so quickly and easily signed off on this basically it's a gag order on the ME's office. So it was Detective Byers who characterized the probe into what happened to Celeste as an investigation. He said, quote, it's an investigation into a schmurder. I'm watching my words here, according to the document. So who handled the grand jury for the state of California? Well, so they're representing the prosecution, Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, so this is why I'm confident that the DA will be bringing indictments after the grand jury comes back with their findings, who handles some of the county's most high profile murder cases, has also called several witnesses to testify before the grand jury, according to one of the law enforcement sources. Remember, we have two sources and a document showing that a GJ jury has been impaneled that were provided to the Times. Now, according to Beth Silverman, this is the assistant DA, she did not immediately respond for request for comment today. Of course, she is concerned that she does not want to have this out there in the public realm. When reached for comment, a spokesperson for the LA District Attorney's Office explained that, quote, in accordance with longstanding office policy and California law, we are not at liberty to discuss or disclose any information about a grand jury. Billboard also reached out to D4vd's lawyer for comment and did not receive a response. In my opinion, I don't know if the grand jury is still continuing, if they've recessed for the Thanksgiving holiday, or if they're done and indictments will be coming next. But I am confident that the indictments are coming. So the district attorney's office said in its statement that it could not, quote, disclose any information about grand jury proceedings. So it sounds like they had enough probable cause to take it to a grand jury, and they chose to do that instead of a preliminary hearing, which would have been public, to get the indictment against D4vd, allegedly, in my opinion, and any other accomplices. Now, an LAPD spokesman referred the Times to a statement issued earlier this week, which did not address the existence of this grand jury. They just simply weren't going to answer any questions when they were asked to comment on this. They just referred the Times back to a statement that they issued earlier this week, which we'll talk about in a second. But let's continue on with the breaking news. Attorney for the 20-year-old singer, David Anthony Burke, did not respond to a request for comment. Remember, he hired this high-profile criminal defense attorney who represented the former Prince Andrew. He's not known as Prince Andrew anymore. So detectives have spent months investigating the circumstances around what happened to Celeste, as well as investigating her relationship. So this is the first time that we're hearing about this, her relationship with David. Now, David's black 2023 $100,000 Tesla was abandoned one street over, not 1 week, one street over from the mansion in the Hollywood Hills on Bluebird Avenue. Now, it was sitting there for several weeks, so it was ultimately impounded. A tow yard worker at the impound lot noticed that there was a smell coming from the Tesla and called the police. Now, inside the trunk, we know that police found a black bag containing Celeste remains. She was not frozen, as was reported out by TMZ. We're going to talk more about that in a second. She weighed 71 pounds, and her family said she weighed around 120 pounds. So she had obviously been in there. We did find out from the LAPD on the last update that I gave you day before yesterday that Celeste had been in the trunk at least 5 weeks. Or at least she had been done away with for 5 weeks. That was at least. So we know the timeline that they're going from is 5 weeks ago and earlier of when she was done away with. And I believe, as I shared with you in the update that I gave you guys yesterday morning, that I believe that she was done away with sometime in March, probably, or late February, early March, somewhere in there. But we'll find out. And the reason I believe this is because he purchased the red Tesla in February, and the Doheny, the second property, went back up on the market on March 7th. Let's get back to this grand jury. And then we're going to talk about the discrepancy between LAPD and TMZ and what I believe happened. So the LAPD captain, Scott Williams, who leads the robbery homicide division, said that Celeste had been done away with for at least several weeks. The captain, in the update I gave you yesterday, said that it had been 5 weeks, at least 5 weeks. So on Monday, he did clarify that Celeste was not frozen. So what happened? Why do we have this discrepancy between TMZ and the LAPD? Now this is my opinion. TMZ does pay for tips. So sometimes when you pay for tips, and I believe they have good sources inside the LAPD, but sometimes when you pay for tips, people are more likely to come forward with something that may not be 100% credible because they want to get paid. So this is what I think happened. I think TMZ did put this story out in good faith, but I think there was a discrepancy because of the report that they had trouble getting her Celeste fingerprints due to them being waterlogged, right? Remember, TMZ talked about the fingers being waterlogged. Now, so I think that someone, in my opinion, interpreted this either in the ME's office, the LAPD, or TMZ, that they were waterlogged because she had been frozen. However, they could have been waterlogged due to the fact that she used to weigh 120 pounds, according to her family, at the time that she was reported missing. And that she only weighed 71 pounds when they found her. So, obviously a lot had happened. And so I think that she may have been waterlogged due to other fluids, not necessarily because she was frozen. Because the LAPD captain, Scott Williams, has been adamant that she was not frozen. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Give this a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below.